Hello and welcome to another episode of All Elite Arcade. It's a Monday and it's time to discuss video games with your good pals, Evil Uno and the Chugs. Chugs, how you doing this week?
It's been a good week. It's been a really good week, Uno, because we both got quite a bit of gaming in this past week.
A lot of big releases in the last week and a lot of free time on my hands, which to me, it means one of two things. I'm either cleaning up the house or I'm sitting down firmly grasping a controller for several hours. And that's a lot of what I did this week for sure. Chugs, what have you been playing?
Yeah. So I did travel quite a bit this week. I was on the road a lot. So I was able to bring my Nintendo Switch, which was awesome. But before I do jump into that, I, of course, want to talk a little bit about my 5-game cycle.
Yes.
Only was able to make a little bit of progress on 2 games. One of those being The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. And again, if you were not also playing it, I wouldn't say anything.
Yes.
So I'm going to be very, very careful about what I say. But once again, I am continuing the Hearts of Stone DLC, which is absolutely incredible. I stand by this. I think maybe, I know this is debatable, but I think maybe Hearts of Stone is the best story in the entirety of The Witcher 3. So currently went through that a little bit more, and just incredible. It's fun. It's silly. The action is great. It's just incredible how well they've done that. And Uno, I'm very excited to hear what you think as you go further and further through The Witcher 3. But yeah, again, Hearts of Stone is absolutely amazing. Really, really enjoying it. And again, that's all I'm going to say for now. But everyone who's listening, you know how much I love The Witcher 3.
I greatly appreciate you not spoiling it. But Heart of Stone, that's the one that starts with, and sorry to anyone that might not have played it, but that's the one where you go to like a wedding with a ghost, correct?
Yes,
all right, that's all I need to know. That's all I know. I need no other explanations. So.
Okay. So yeah. But and that's exactly what I was doing this past stream. So super fun. But also, and speaking of being kind of vague, I'm going to talk a little bit about Silent Hill 2 Remake. I know I've been singing its praises for quite some time. But again, anyone who's seen Silent Hill 2 Remake or played it knows that Silent Hill 2 covers some really heavy stuff.
Yes.
Like really, really heavy topics, heavy trauma, things like that. So again, I'm not going to go into an incredible amount of detail, but I will say, having played the original Silent Hill 2 and playing Silent Hill 2 Remake, I experienced for the first time something that I truly believe the remake did better than the original, without question. And that is the scene with Angela where you fight the boss in Angela's realm of Silent Hill 2. So again, the original boss fight with Angela's boss fight, I won't even say the name of the boss, but the original fight in Silent Hill 2 is you're just in one small tiny room. The room is very disturbing and very, very strange and wild. But again, it's just in one room. In the remake, they have extended on this so much. You're going through an entire labyrinth, an entire place that looks like almost Angela's home that she was growing up in, which is pretty wild. The boss fight is multiple phases. And again, I just have to mention this. At the end of this boss fight, the voice acting scene between the actor who played James and the actress who played Angela was so unbelievably well done. It's burned into my memory for the rest of time.
Whoa.
It's burned into my memory. The acting and the voice acting and the way that the scene was created or the way it was shot was so brilliant and also so unbelievably soul-crushing. Uno, I was streaming this. I needed to take a second. I was crying so much. It's so sad. So sad. And
the tally on cries on Twitch goes up.
I'm a crier, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone who checks out twitch.tv/the Chugs, pretty much you got a 1 in 4 chance if I'm going to cry.
That's true.
One of those. But again, just so absolutely incredible. And I do think, again, there have been some differences between the original and the remake. And I understand the debate between some people liking certain things about the original, some people liking certain things about the remake. I can say for certain that entire boss fight and that entire scene, I think Blooper Team did an unbelievable job. And I did really appreciate it even more than the original. And I love the original as well. But the amount of juicy lore you find in this boss fight is just unbelievable. And everyone knows, Uno is a puzzle master. I love my juicy lore.
Oh,
so
yes.
I got a lot of it. But yeah, so those, because I was traveling so much, those are the only 2 games on my Twitch streams that I've made progress on. But like I mentioned, also, when I was traveling this week, I was on the road for 4 or 5 days. Of course, I brought my Nintendo Switch OLED. I'm ready to rock and roll with some Pokemon Scarlet. Dude, Uno, it's great, man. But I will say, with an open world Pokemon game, the lack of progress I've made towards like the main objective is ridiculous. It's one of those things where, again, I only have a lot of experience with the first generation of Pokemon. So as I'm running around in this open world and battling these trainers and going to all these different areas, right now I'm in a snow area, which is really, really cool. Dude, there are so many new Pokemon that I did not know about. I feel like every 2 minutes I'm catching or battling a Pokemon I've never seen before, and it's incredible. Like, I love it so much. I'm constantly running out and doing battles or capturing Pokemon. Then I go back to a stop and I rest all my Pokemon and I do it all over again. When literally the intention is, okay, I'm here. I'm gonna get to point A, which is another gym or a Team Star base or a Titan Pokemon. That's where I'm gonna go. It takes me an hour or 2 hours because I'm running and encountering all these new Pokemon and then go back and rest and go again. So, but it's been so fun. Again, I've done 2 of the Team Star bases. I've done 2 of the Titan Pokemon fights, and I've done 2 of the Victory Road gyms as well.
Okay.
And fortunately too, I got in this situation where my Pokemon were a little bit too strong. Like, I remember it was at a point where I used my main Pokemon and I was trying to weaken them and I was just killing them in one shot. So I'd have to switch out another Pokemon. But now the area that I'm in, the level is more evenly matched where it's like actually tough fights, which I love. So that's been tricky to kind of navigate and find where I'm over leveled and where, the Pokemon I'm fighting are too strong. But I'm really enjoying Pokemon Scarlet. And on top of that too, again, the general rule, obviously, you go around, you collect your 8 badges, you go fight the Elite Four. That is still in there. But there's an entire other subsection of a story with these Titan Pokemon, which is so cool because, again, you ride a Pokemon. So it's the Pokemon on the cover of Pokemon Scarlet for me that you ride around and you traverse and you travel throughout the world. And when you do these Titan Pokemon fights, which are these huge battles that you have, you end up getting something that is made into a sandwich, and then it gives your Pokemon that you ride different abilities. So, for example, the first ability I unlocked was the ability to jump, which was really, really cool. So I could get up on certain ledges that I couldn't before. And then I just got another one, and this is I can jump way higher, way higher. So now I can traverse like practically everywhere. I can't swim yet, but I'm assuming at some point I'm going to be able to unlock that. And then the Team Star situation is very, very cool because it's almost like it's not Team Rocket, but it is supposed to be the villains kind of the game. And as that's unfolding more and more, you're discovering that Team Star is the way they are because they were bullied at the Pokemon Academy and they're resentful and they want to stand up to everybody. So then it's kind of like it's a sad situation and a sad story where I'm thinking this is going to have some sort of happy ending with the Team Star stuff. But again, all of it's optional. All you have to do is Victory Road, do the 8 gyms and then go on to the Elite Four. But I'm having so much fun with everything in the open world. Really, really enjoying Pokemon Scarlet once again. So that's been an absolute blast. But again, fortunately, when I did come home from the road, I had the chance to play 2 more games, which was nice. I made some more progress on my own personal 5-game cycle off stream, and that is with Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Once again, I love what they've done with this campaign. And one of my favorite things is it was, I believe, the 3rd mission where you go to a political event and you're in there with a camera and you have to kind of figure out how to get a eye scan to be able to access this one door and rescue, rescue Adler, who is an incredibly important character in the Call of Duty franchise. But what I really like about it is I remember watching my brother play this exact mission, and there's 3 choices of places you can go or ways you can go about getting this eye scan. And I picked something completely different from him. I was assuming the mission was going to be the same. It's completely different. I had a completely different experience than he did, which was so cool. So the replay value of wanting to play this campaign as well is very interesting because you have those choices to be able to, do whatever you want to do. Also, Uno, you're going to be proud of me. I can't believe I'm saying this. I was Metal Gear Chugs, dude. I was sneaking around.
You did it.
So good, dude. I was Metal Gear Chugs. I'm so proud of myself. I couldn't believe it. I'm really enjoying the stealth aspects of Call of Duty Black Ops 6 as well. So,
which is very,
of course,
those Call of Duty games rarely have stealth in them. Typically, they're just run up the front door and gun everything humanly possible. They really changed it up on this solo mode.
Yeah. And the nice thing, though, too, is it doesn't force you to do that. You absolutely can go in guns blazing. And there was a time where that happened. But also the sneaking sections are really, really fun. The only issue that I've run into is I'm having some performance issues. But I think before, I remember this happened to me on my Xbox One when I had an external hard drive and I played Gears 5 on the external hard drive, and it was really, really choppy. So then I switched it over to the internal drive, and it worked great. So again, lots of times when I play Black Ops 6, it runs awesome. But when there's a bunch of enemies on the screen, the lag is very, very prevalent. So I was looking up some stuff, and I saw some people had this same issue. I think I'm going to attempt to move, because I have that 2 terabyte storage expansion card for the Xbox Series X. So it is an official expansion for the memory. I think I'm going to try to move it to the internal drive to see if that makes a difference.
Which
some people said they just
might be the entirety of your Xbox too, right?
I know. Right now,
that's a big game.
Now, 300 gigs.
Yeah,
300 gigs.
Yeah.
But for anyone who's listening or watching on YouTube, if anyone has had this problem before and figured out a fix for it, please let me know in the comments below, because I definitely want to try, because the campaign is incredible and I want to have like as smooth of an experience as possible. Again, it's not like the end of the world or anything like that, but when there's a lot of action, it does get a little choppy. So I'm sure just moving stuff around will definitely make a difference. But yeah, Black Ops 6, incredible campaign. Can't wait to continue it. And then last but not least, Uno, I was feeling very nostalgic. I was feeling very retro. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to play the first video game I ever played. I'm going to play some Road Rash on the Sega Genesis.
Oh, you went all the way back.
All the way back, baby. I'm now also as well, just casually, I'm going back and playing and attempting to beat all of these games I grew up with, because I love that feeling of nostalgia, and these games are so special to me. But dude, let me tell you. So I've made some real good progress. How Road Rash works is there are 5 stages. And then after you get first through third on all 5 stages, you go to level 2, which is the same 5 levels, but the bikers you're going up against are a little bit faster, a little bit more aggressive. There's a little bit more obstacles in your way. I've gotten all the way up to level 4.
Ooh.
And I've gotten first in the first 2 races, but race 3, I cannot get anything past 3rd place. Road Rash is so difficult. Your reaction time has to be out of this world. And I've made the decision in my brain. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to go past the next stage unless I get first. And I'm getting to a point now where I may say, okay, first through third, that counts as like winning the race. Maybe I'll do that. Because dude, I've been stuck on it for so long, but I'm still determined. Road Rash is such a fun game. But yeah, those older games are very, very challenging for sure.
If I remember as well, like late in the game, they start changing the weaponry to be like chains and stuff too, right? So they have more reach.
So I think that's Road Rash 2. I think that's
Okay.
But there may be, because I'm not at level 5 yet. But all I know is that in Road Rash 1, they have the baton, and then there's the cops on the bikes, and there's just so many cars.
Oh yeah, you're kicking back and forth the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have the best bike, which is the Diablo. It's like a dark blue bike, and it's super, super fast. But again, there's almost this rubber band effect too, where like if you crash, then the bikes in front of you kind of slow down so you can catch up.
Yes.
But if you go super fast and get past them, then they get faster. It's just, I can't believe I got third, honestly, but I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to report back to everybody and let you know if I got first place or not. And then one final thing, Uno, and then I definitely want to hear what you've been playing. But of course, I've been playing the Pokemon trading card game.
Of course, same here.
Collecting as many cards as possible. But again, also getting better at the battles. I'm not doing a ton of the versus mode, but I am still going through the solo missions, and I'm currently almost done with the advanced battles and collecting
going an
everything
expert
that you can
right
get.
after.
So yeah, almost there. So it's been fun to kind of learn that and get better at that. And of course, collecting the packs is the absolute best part. Pokemon rules. The Pokemon trading card game is so addictive and so much fun. But yeah, that's a lot of gaming this week, man. All things considered.
And the train's gonna keep going because I think I played as much, if not more, video games than you this week.
Beautiful.
I'll start with trading card game. The Pokemon trading card game. I'm still playing it. I'm still pretty religiously opening 2 packs a day. I've reached that point where I'm near my status of, okay, maybe I'm getting at the end of these packs and I can't get that many good stuff. I'll get like a rare every 3-4 packs at this moment, which means I'm maybe a week or 2 away from thinking maybe I'll stop playing this, and then they'll drop another thing, and then I'll keep going. But right now I'm like steadily opening my 2 packs, still wondering if I should get that premium plan just to open that 1 extra pack a day. I'm not gonna do it. I've decided, but I'm religiously doing all the missions. I've been doing. I'm trying to get all of the extra XP, all the extra coins that they sell, the emblems, all that stuff. I've been trying to acquire. It still dominates a short period of my day, almost every day.
Uno, it's my routine every morning. I on purpose don't open a pack at night now. I
so you
like
get the
to
double
wake
pack?
up and have the double pack. It's a perfect way to start the day. Double pack, Pokemon trading card game.
One of my favorite things is when I wake up, I have the double pack, and I have just enough currency to open a 3rd pack. That's a good morning for me. That's a good morning for me.
A 3-pack morning?
Yeah.
A 3-pack morning, dude?
Oh. Yeah, if I get 1 or 2 rares on that, my whole day, my mood is shifted. I'm looking upwards for sure.
Instant morale boost. 3 packs.
I love the trading card game. If you're not playing it, it's very addictive. I've been playing a lot, so I'm gonna go in order of releases too. Well, last week we talked about Avowed. And I played about 7 hours of Avowed last week. I just got into the first major city. The way the game is constructed, it's like multiple large areas. It's part of a larger map, but it's multiple large areas, and then you get to a point where you get to bleed into the next large area, like a connector point, be it a bridge or a door or whatever. So I finally have reached the end of the first area. I'm sure I will revisit it. But I've done every little mission that they have presented me in that, and I've now just started venturing into the larger map, aka the next large portion. It's really good. I've enjoyed it a whole lot. I think last week I talked about how I still was having issues with the lore because I don't know much about Pillars of Eternity. That still seems to be an issue with me, where I'm having a lot of fun playing, exploring. The combat is honestly very, very satisfying. I love the spell stuff. I love the gun. I've loved like maneuvering around weapons and using that second unit to try new stuff. It's been really, really fun to do that stuff. I love the parry system. There's a parry system in there too. If you block at the right time, you can open up stuff. It's playing it minute to minute is incredible. I'm still having a very hard time though connecting with the story points. I'm interested in my main character. I'm interested in his otherworldly talks with like the being that's part of the Adra, I believe, which the crystals that you go around. That's interesting. But the lore dumps about the world, because I know nothing about Pillars of Eternity, is very hard for me to maneuver what I'm actually listening to. Is it important to me or is it not? And there's so much, it's like a Skyrim game. It's like a lot of other games. There's a lot of lore in it, and there's a lot of books to read. There's a lot of secondary people to talk to with a lot of dialogue. Almost everyone, I could get to a character and spend 25 minutes just talking to them most of the time. And it's not even making a decision. It's just, here's the information this person to tell you about. And it's interesting to hear, but I'm reaching that point where I'm like, I'm getting all this lore and I still cannot decipher what is lore that is for my story and what is lore that's just world building. And that's been a little hard to maneuver, but it's still an incredible game. I'm enjoying my minute to minute. I'm having a very hard time to connect with the story. But if you're playing it, my main suggestion, now that I've played a good amount, I think I played about 11 hours of it. I will complete this game. I will continue. But man, get the spell book, level that bad boy up, and get a handgun. It is some of the most fun first-person shooting I've ever played. And that's just mostly because typically I was more of a get close with a sword guy, but in first person, first person is always in my mind fit for guns, but guns do not fit in a fantasy world. Somehow this game makes it fit, makes it work. And adding the extra spells where you can set people on fire, you can freeze them and shoot them while they're frozen, get a combination, or electrify people. Or later on, there's more spells. It's been very, very fun to, more than anything, just explore the map, get into a little nook where you realize there's a character that's stronger than you, and then repeatedly going at it, knowing that I've what's cool in this game is they don't scale the enemies to you, and so if you get to a region that's too hard, you'll die. It will not scale to your level, and if later on you come back to it, they will be at the same level. I've actually enjoyed that because it gives me an extra bit of challenge. I'm not playing on the hardest difficulty, but like every time I meet a challenging boss, rather than like come back to it, I refuse. I'm like, no, I know I have the skill to do this. We're going to pull this off. And it might take me 4 or 5 times, but I honestly think it's the way to play this game for me. So anyways, I love Avowed. It's been running great on my Xbox. I definitely would suggest it. It does take a lot of Pillars of Eternity lore that I know nothing about. But if you think there's an easy way for me to understand this or a video, let me know in the YouTube comments, youtube.com/AEW Games, because I have a very hard time understanding the lore connected to the gods and what part of the islands are dedicated to stuff. Like, I can't really decipher that stuff. If there is a easy way for me to understand all that, let me know. youtube.com/AEW Games. Let me know in the comments. I do love a good lore video, and I think that would really simplify my running through this whole world.
Yeah. Uno, I'm with you. I'm playing Avowed on PC, and just very quickly, I'm absolutely going to finish this game as well.
Yes.
It's been a lot of fun. So I'm glad that you're still having a blast with it.
Yeah, Obsidian's got another hit on their hands for sure. If you liked Outer Worlds, this is definitely in the same vein. Just a lot more fantasy based. But with like a lot of variety on what you can do, which is, I think, the best part. You're not locked in on one type of play. Like the way I tell you to play it might not be yours. Guess what? There's like different weapons. I think as of yet, I've seen at least 13 different sets of weapons that you can play around with. It's well worth navigating and trying to figure out what's your best course of action in this game.
Yeah, and they're all fun. They're all fun.
Oh, yeah. I started using a spear recently, and I was like, oh, this is pretty good, too. Like,
I love the spear.
Yeah. I was like, okay, maybe I'm a spear guy. So anyways, I've been navigating that stuff. Avowed is very, very good. But I have put it and I've shelved it for a few days now. And the reason for that is that, like a dragon, Yakuza, what was it? Pirate in Hawaii, or Pirate Life in Hawaii, was supposed to come out on February 28th. And last week, they just announced, they're like, hey, by the way, it's coming out February 21st, everyone. And so I did this little thing, and I don't know if this might not even be legal, but I'm going to say it anyways. I don't care. On your Xbox, you can change the date format and country format to be in Australia. And you could play a game a whole day before it comes out. And so I woke up late one day knowing that night I would not go to bed for a very long time because the video game was going to come out around like 10 p.m. my time. So at like 10 p.m. my time, I'm set up to Australia or New Zealand, one of the two, and the game unlocks. And I've played, the game's only, at the time of this recording, the game has theoretically been out for a little more than 24 hours, and I've already played upwards of 10 hours of this game.
That's incredible.
Yes, it's good. I will say, if you played the Like a Dragon games, it is a lot of those games in the sense that they are able to pump out these games every year because it's a lot of recycled assets from their previous stuff. It's smartly done where like they only really build 4 big cities across the entirety of the Yakuza games. And Honolulu in Hawaii is their latest big hub that they've built. And rather than keep giving you a new place to go, They just have built on that and built around it. So in this game, you start off in all these little islands near Hawaii. The story is very similar to Like a Dragon's Ichiban story, where you wake up on the beach and you have amnesia and you have no idea what the hell's going on. Except your Goro Majima, which is like the bad guy from previous Yakuza games, where he was such a cool bad guy that at some point people are like, turn him into a baby face. And that's so you play as him now. You wake up on an island. You don't know why you're there. This local family essentially like houses you for a bit, and then you become friends with the child of the family, and you decide that you want to help him achieve his dream while simultaneously getting your memory back. And his dream is to get to another island and Honolulu. And the way you do that, because right off the bat is you're attacked by a pirate group, is you end up beating up the pirate group and becoming the king of that pirate ship, and you go to Honolulu. That part is what the new part of this video game is. It's kind of fun because some of the game is structured as the old hack and slash style, where you're doing like different fighting styles. It's a lot of button mashing, which if you like the old style of Yakuza games, there's a lot of that stuff. The most recent one was turn-based. Now it's back to that action format. That's fun. But when you're removed from the cities, it's a bunch of little islands, and I don't know geography, so do not ask me how that works. But it's a bunch of little islands, and it plays kind of, I wouldn't say like a Wind Waker. It doesn't have like that it doesn't have the map appeal. Like, it's a lot simpler than a Wind Waker, but you are in a boat and you have to go to different islands, and you can stop at islands to get treasures, to fight big bosses on your way to the big cities. So you can really, at first you can navigate, find little stuff, and there's so many islands you can't explore them all, and you don't have icons on them all. But as you progress the game, you might find a new navigator who tells you like, hey, if you go to this island, there's this, and that'll open up that island, so you can then re-go and re-navigate to a lighthouse, which is where the waypoint fixtures are, and then you would go to these islands, you get these new treasures. That part has been really cool. The naval combat's been very interesting. You can get combat on your ship, hand-to-hand combat if they board it, or most of the time, and as of yet, I've found that this has been fairly easy, but this is very early on in the naval combat stuff. You have a machine gun at the front, and you have cannons at the side, and you will eventually evolve your ship to have more stuff. And it's mostly about getting them heads on, and the second they try to navigate, try to steer that ship around so you can hit it with a cannon. It's been neat. Nice. It's kind of weird that a pirate game, we've been teased all these pirate games, and then suddenly this game is like, I don't know, we'll just do a pirate game. And somehow they figured it out better than most other ones.
Right. Right.
So that's been really good. I've enjoyed it a whole lot. I can't get too deep into the game yet because I'm only 10 hours deep, which in most games would mean I'm deep into the game. But in the Yakuza games, it means I haven't even unlocked 50% of the features yet. I'm just on this city. I'm slowly 10 hours in. I got my first or second side mission. So that gives you an idea. Wow. Yes, it is. You get fairly deep before you start unlocking most of the content. So you have all your usual mini games in there. You have the baseball stuff. You have the they have a Pokemon Snap mode where you take like photos of weird perverts on the bus. Anyways, it's a fun game. If you like the Like a Dragon games, it's more of that. Don't expect anything super new other than the boat stuff, though. It is very a recycled format, and that's fine for me. It's almost a feel good game for me. Every year I come back, I play the same freaking game, just slightly tweaked, but it's enough for me. I'm very happy with it. I suggest it.
Oh, sorry.
Please go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask one question quickly.
Yes.
So in your opinion, I know you're only 10 hours in, which is incredible, again, with the game being out 24 hours. But is this one that you feel like if someone hasn't played Yakuza, they could jump into?
So yes and no. So I think you could definitely start off this one because it doesn't it's not demanding a lot of your attention as far as the previous ones. It's not like telling you like, here are characters that you need to know. Instead, what it does is it shows you a character that was in a previous game and assumes you know, and if you don't, it will tell you what those characters. They're so high on monologues that if a character shows up, he'll be like, "Who's this guy?" "Well, 4 years ago, you remember him from this thing." Blah 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 blah. And right off the bat, as you play the game, after 2 hours, you get this like title screen into a big like musical number, and right post that, it gives you a recap of the last 2 games, so you understand like the scene in Honolulu and how it relates to the previous game. But like,
okay, awesome.
If you didn't play 0 onwards, I don't think it'll damage this game. The only thing is you might not have the weight behind Goro Majima or any of his ensemble. But otherwise, you can just jump into it. It is fun. It's fun enough to just jump into for sure.
Cool.
So that's the big 2 that I've played, but that's not all. I also played a bunch of little ones too. I've continued my quest on Cookie Clicker. I don't think I'll ever stop. That game is just quite literally open right now, cultivating cookies. I cannot stop doing it. I played 3 other games. I played more of Crypt Master, which is that typing game. So it's kind of like, imagine Type of the Dead, where as you see a monster, you have to type their word to shoot them. It's the same idea, except it has limitations. So it's kind of like imagine like a Scrabble board shows up, and it's like, okay, you have spells, and if your spell inserting that spell, let's say the spell is Crackle. If you write Crackle, let's say it gives 2 damage for all the R's in that character's name. So when that character comes to you, their name is there. So you'll write Crackle, it'll give you a damage of 4 because it has 2 R's in his name, for example. You have to navigate this constantly with 4 characters as you're battling a boss, and that boss is attacking you, and he might have extra stuff. So, as you're trying to attack it, every time he hits you, he might heal. So you might have to find ways to not take damage so that you can continuously reduce his numbers fast enough as you're typing. It's a very unique game. Like, I don't know very many typing games that are built this way. It's built on typing puzzles, riddles, combat. It's been very, very neat, and it's got a really like tongue-in-cheek approach to humor in it as well. I'm surprised not a lot of people have talked about it, but also it's such a niche, innovative game that I just don't think a lot of people would be able to get into it very deeply. But I'm a few hours in. I think I'm 6 hours in, and I've loved it as of yet. It's been very, very interesting.
Nice. That sounds really interesting.
It's really cool. If you're looking for something weird and fresh, Crypt Master is something unique that you definitely have not played. And the last 2 I played one called Murders of the Yangtze River. That is a Chinese developed video game that is very much like Ace Attorney. You were like a Chinese exchange student that went to went to London and learned detective practices. You come back to China, and there's murders that are happening, and you are essentially put in a position to try and solve them. It plays almost 100% like Ace Attorney, which is fine by me. It's it's surprising. I've never even heard that this game was out, but they made a sale recently on Steam where there was like games that you might have missed in 2024 that are highly rated, and this was like overwhelmingly positive, and I had never heard of it. It's been great. I'm 3 missions in. It's scratching that Ace Attorney itch, and so if you're out there and you're looking for an Ace Attorney game, Murders on the Yangtze River is definitely one for you. And then finally, this one's my last one I'm going to talk about. There's a sequel to the game Crypt of the Necrodancer that came out called Rift of the Necrodancer. Crypt of the Necrodancer and Cadence of Hyrule were 2 games that are rhythm-based games, but they were rhythm-based games and you had to hit the rhythm to maneuver around an isometric view of a land. So like if you wanted to go up, you could only go up on a beat. If you wanted to attack, you could only attack on a beat, so on and so forth. What they did with Rift of the Necrodancer is they've stripped away the maneuvering, and it's just a Guitar Hero straight rhythm game, but instead of you hitting arrows, they're enemies, and every enemy has a different movement pattern. So for example, if a skeleton gets at you, you hit it once, that's fine. If a red skeleton gets at you, you might have to hit it 3 times. If a blue one, it's twice. A gold one, you hit it, it runs back up the track, and once it hits another thing, it starts running back at you. So like you're constantly, as you're listening to the tune and trying to hit the beat of the tune, you're also seeing the enemies come in, and then you have to quickly figure out what their pattern is because you only have like 2 seconds before it reaches your rhythm point. It's super hard.
I bet.
Yeah, it may be like too hard for what I want in a video game, but it has made me like. It's one of those games where I like a challenge, but sometimes challenges are too much and it makes me like turn off on a video game. I'm at the cusp with this video game where it aggravates me, but not enough to piss me off and make me leave. It aggravates me just enough to be like, no, I can do this. I will do this. And then when I'm doing it, I'm going to beat every person on my friends list as well. So I've reached that point of that game. It's been very interesting. If you like rhythm games, it's a very original concept. Incredible music, honestly. Crypto the Necro Dancer, incredible music. Cadence the Hyrule had incredible music. This has music featuring from Meat Boy. They keep dropping new tracks on it. I think there's upwards of 60 tracks on it as well. It's really effing cool. But fair warning, if you don't like difficult rhythm games, this is one of the most difficult ones I've ever played. But highly recommend it. I'm playing it on Steam, and I believe it is on most consoles right now. Go check out Rift of the Necro Dancer. And that's it. We played a lot of video games this week.
We played a lot, Uno. I'm pretty sure we could just keep talking about the games that we played, but I know at some point we got to get to the news.
Oh, for sure. I played at least 4 more games for less than an hour that I'm just not going to talk about. I'm going to save them for next week because I'm likely going to add more time to it. But it's been a great game week, but that's not all. We actually have a ton of video game news to talk about. It's a really weighty week of news here in late February, and we're going to talk about that right after this. Hello and welcome back. It's time for your news of the week. Plenty of news in the video game world, but before that, do you want to become an AEW insider? Well, get early access to ticket pre-sales, special merchandise offers, and more straight to your inbox. Sign up today, AEWTix.com. Get those emails. Get all the information ahead of everyone else. Bunch of news this week. Some good, some bad. We're going to go through all of it, starting with, and this one may only play to me and maybe 50 other people who listen to this, but, Chugs, do you know what the Samurai Pizza Cats is?
I do not know what the Samurai Pizza Cats is.
Well, the Samurai Pizza Cats were a early 90s cartoon that, at least in Canada, played on YTV. This was like our cartoon channel. And what it is exactly what it sounds like. They're cats who are samurais, but they also deliver pizza. It's around that time is when I feel like I have more fascination with cartoons around that timeline. That Street Sharks, the Mighty Ducks, Darkwing Duck, all that stuff was like huge, ingrained in my mind. Why am I talking about this? Because after a 35-year anniversary of the classic anime, they're dropping a hack and slash video game for the Samurai Pizza Cats. They just randomly dropped a official game reveal. They brought back all the voice actors, which is insane. Same art style. It looks, it has a lot, actually, if it's not all of them, it has most of the English voice actors, at least. It is available to wishlist on Steam right now. There's no release date. It involves some platforming, it has some hack and slash. There's a 2D action RPG portion of it. It looks really neat. Go to YouTube, check out the Samurai Pizza Cats trailer right now if you are interested, because I am.
Uno, once we're done with this, I'm absolutely going to go check out that trailer.
You should. You should. Really cool. I don't know if the cartoon is any good anymore. It's one of those things where in the 90s, I thought it was incredible. I have not rewatched it since. But the best way maybe to go forward is just to play the video game. Here's another bit of cool news. Tony Hawk Pro Skater. You might have been hearing about it recently because there's been rumors about a remaster coming out. And those rumors have now led to an even bigger sign that something's coming up, because on a Tony Hawk Pro Skater website that was launched just recently, there's a countdown clock going to March 4th. That is in US format this month. No one knows when it's going for, but there has been some indications, including a lot of people have rumored that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is getting a 3+4 remaster. They had just remastered 1+2. It was incredible. It didn't have the full soundtrack, but it doesn't matter. It had a great soundtrack as well. 3+4 has a great soundtrack as well. We'll see what they do with that. But on top of that, They also, in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, they just recently dropped, you talked about it a ton, but they dropped a map in multiplayer called Grind. Grind being a Tony Hawk Pro Skater's term, or a pro skating term. And within it, they had the Tony Hawk logo and a March 4th date as an Easter egg plastered within the map. And so a lot of people are believing that something is going to come up from it, especially because the Xbox account and the Tony Hawk account have taken clips of that and did the eyes emojis on social media, indicating something is coming up. And that is not all as well, because a pro skater, Tyshawn Jones, he was in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, casually just revealed that there's a new Tony Hawk game that's going to be coming out soon. Probably didn't know that he wasn't allowed to talk about it, but he casually revealed that something is coming up. I think a remaster is fine. I don't think we're getting a new one, because in reality, I don't think we necessarily need a new one. I just kind of want to replay the old ones. And then once we've replayed all of them, maybe we'll get to a point where we could just get a larger scale video game. But I'm very excited for this. What about you?
Oh, me too. And in the world now that we live in, where I know we talk about this all the time, but constant remasters and remakes and how successful all of these projects have been based on nostalgia, and then also introducing people who hadn't played these games to these games is so cool. Again, the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater series, some of those games are like some of the highest ranked video games of all time.
Yes.
If you go on Metacritic, I think
2
Tony
is
Hawk's
one of the
Pro Skater
highest
2.
ones ever. Yeah.
Yes. Unbelievable. So I think it's so cool. And it sounds like we for sure, again, we can't make any promises, but it sounds like for sure, based on all this information, we're going to get some sort of remaster or remake. If we get 3+4, that'd be so awesome. But more Tony Hawk is good news for me.
Yes, absolutely. I want more Tony Hawk. I love the old soundtracks, and I wouldn't be, if they do these remasters, I wouldn't be it wouldn't be out of question to make a brand new one with a brand new current date soundtrack as well. I feel like also skate culture is coming back a little bit. So I think we are gearing a point where Tony Hawk will be very relevant again, I think.
For sure.
All right, here's good or potentially bad news. It depends what you're into. Microsoft, makers of all kinds of things, but no, in this podcast we're talking about Xbox. They have now started a model to build video games completely out of AI that can generate full gameplay just inserting commands into AI. So they revealed Muse. That's an AI model designed to assist video game development and preservation. I will say there is some upward. There's some good to this. So it was created with partnership of Ninja Theory because Muse was using Bleeding Edge, which was one of their previous game, 7 years worth of Bleeding Edge data to construct their AI for future use. And the model can generate environments. It can do reactions, gameplay, animation reactions for characters, and simulate full physics-based interactions. They're now exploring more to do with this. And the news also comes at a time when devs are worried that people will lose their jobs, right? So this is a weird... It's cool that we've built a thing that can do this. I think it is fascinating.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's the endeavor to get to this is insane. Machine learning, getting it to a point that you can just build a video game out of AI is cool as hell. But, and this is where I'm going to take my stance here, I think it's bad. Mm-hmm. I think it's a bad thing.
Completely agree.
We're in the middle of, and we're going to talk about it shortly after this too. A lot of people are losing their jobs already in the video game world, not to mention in the world at large. And knowing that AI is only going to go further and further and faster, it is quite worrisome that we're getting to a point where AI might be able to generate at least the skeleton of a video game, which means a lot of people that would even be involved in the process of making a video game's jobs are at risk. So I would say I'm of two minds, but I definitely lean on this being a negative. But the fact that I'm sure Microsoft is happy that they've reached a point that they can make something out of this. It's just the monetary casualties it's going to do to all kinds of employees it is quite wild. I'm unsure where this goes, but I don't think this is the last of it. I think we're going to see more and more of this, especially now that news is publicized of Microsoft getting these steps forward. You're going to see Amazon's, you're going to see Sony's. I don't think you'll ever see Nintendo do this. I feel like they might be the only ones I trust at 100% not to F with this. But I feel like we're going to get, unfortunately, more AI in video games. Do you think this is a good or a bad thing, Chugs?
Uno, I have your exact same stance.
Yes.
If I had to pick, obviously I'm going to say this is a bad thing.
Yes.
I think any time game developers or people in the games industry lose their jobs because of AI, that automatically is horrible to me. Again, there's so many absolutely incredibly talented people that work in the games industry that really I do think, and again, I don't know how wild this is going to get, but to me, you can tell what has a human touch on it and what is AI generated. You can, even as subtle as it may be. But obviously, I want everyone who works in the games industry to still have their jobs and be able to make these incredible games that we love talking about every single week. But again, like you're saying, also the process of it is so fascinating. Like, it's so wild that we've gotten to a point where AI can do stuff like this. And then, for example, I'm sure there are some situations where it's been incredibly helpful. Like, I'm sure this is also kind of like a in-between thing, but the fact that AI is now able to like generate frames to make like frames more smooth and things like that is so fascinating. But again, when it comes to AI making entire games and not needing to use the incredibly talented, amazing people who make these games that we love, that's bad news to me. That's bad news.
So Microsoft's also come out this because they know that this, while it is a venture worth exploring, they also know the backlash that is related to using AI. And so they've come out and they've mentioned that they try to reassure that the purpose of AI is more for repeating or reducing repetitive tasks that would theoretically just take months and months to fix. So like QA, for example, or redoing. And also it will not replace human creativity. It will be up to developers. It is not mandated by Microsoft. It will be up to developers if they want to use these tools to help with their game. So it definitely helps that Microsoft is not making this a mandate on their stuff. I just do not know if the future, even on a small independent level, it may be easier to use AI to fake half of the stuff, or not fake, but at least automate half of the stuff. It's still, I think, going to lead to casualties in the workplace, and not obviously not casualties, but as far as like there will be more cuts, I think, in the industry, unfortunately, because of this.
But you are right, though. It is good that Microsoft has at least come out and emphasized, like, hey, we're not going to use this AI to fully generate games. This is used to enhance the process for the developers. So that is a good sign. But like you said, Uno, where it's going, it just seems kind of scary.
Yeah,
it seems kind of scary where it's
going. And that definitely like covers the artistry aspect of it. But there's parts of making video games that are minute work that no one ever sees, that you may not think of, and those might be more at risk than you would think. So
yeah.
All right, bleeding this into the next subject because we talked about it. More bad news. Recently, NetEase, those are the people behind Marvel Rivals. They just recently laid off a bunch of US-based developers. This comes after, and right after they released all these people, it is revealed that Marvel Rivals has now surpassed 40 million players. That's insane. And it's
unbelievable.
It's unbelievable, but it's also equally unbelievable that they would release so many people knowing they're generating so much money. So it has 10 million registered users within 72 hours of release. And now, a game that launched on December 6th has 40 million users actively on it. So within a month and a half, they have reached an insane level of users for a free game. NetEase has gone on and cut some people in the U.S. and also have just now today, sorry, yesterday, unfortunately, disclosed that they will be releasing more people as well. So this is not. It's weird because NetEase has a huge whale here that is going to generate so much money, so much interest, but they're cutting down and also cutting in U.S. and European markets to go more to Chinese markets as well to reduce in cost, which is whichever. It's really up to you guys. But it's just further proof that like we're in a weird downward momentum on the video game world where you could be you could be registering insane amount of money and still be willing to release like 30% of your workforce.
Right.
It's NetEase CEO nearly canceled the game entirely before this, so that gives you an idea.
Oh wow!
Yeah, they were on the cusp of just completely canceling Marvel Rivals because they did not think that it would offset the losses. Well, now it has. So it's a weird thing. There is no job security in this current game industry. I can't think of a developer that has consistently kept their people for more than 10 years. And I just don't think we're going to reach a point where we do because the market is so competitive. Now AI is back in it. It's not a great time to be a developer, that's for sure.
I know, and that's what kind of makes me so sad for a lot of these game developers, because I feel like as far as game releases and quality of things that we've gotten, whether it's new IPs, remakes, remasters, how great emulation has been with like Nintendo having all of their old games. It's never been easier to play any game ever and constantly getting new stuff. We're spoiled with new games. But yeah, for these developers that make the magic happen, it's a sad time. I really do hope things change, and I am a glass half full guy, and I hope that at some point it does. But again, I just feel so sorry for these people who are getting let go, who work their tails off to make these amazing, amazing games, and it's profiting really well. So yeah, it's just a bummer. It's a real bummer.
Yeah, it must be an awful cycle to start a game and know that when it comes to launch time, which should be the magnus opus of your work, like it should be. You should be excited for it. Most developers probably see it as, oh man, this is it. Yeah. Like we just finished the game. There's no reason to keep me around. And that's really sad. It's really sad to see. It is a very volatile market right now when it comes to video games. Yeah. And then also on the volatile market side, this one is about a previously closed developer, but former PlayStation president Shuhei Yoshida, you might know him. He's appeared on Kind of Funny a whole bunch. He was a huge figurehead for Sony Japan on the video game side. Well, he has come out now that he is no longer with Sony and explained that he believes the Japan studio was closed down because large blockbuster AAA games have taken over the market, and now mid-tier AA games, which is very hard to define what a AA game is, but essentially assume what is a bigger budget game, a step below, maybe not even a full $80 game, maybe a $50, or just something that isn't the scope of 70 hours, maybe only 20. Those no longer generate as much money, making it very difficult for Sony to invest in, and so that is why he believes that Japan studio was shut down in the middle of their stuff. They were closed in April of 2021, and were forced the developers were all forced to seek new work. Of it, they were the people that made Ape Escape, Knack. And also worked from we have to confirm this because we were having a discussion about this. I had put work into Demon Souls, but I believe that became Blue Point afterwards.
I thought so.
Our understanding of that might just be that they helped with it. They definitely did not develop all of it. But of that layoff, some good things have happened. Of the Japan student layoff, a team was made called Team Asobi. They made Astrobot, which ended up becoming Game of the Year. So there's while it was definitely cut down, I think a lot of people within the Sony industry at least found a place to fall back upon. But that just shows you why a lot of the stuff might be cut nowadays. If they don't think it's going to be a blockbuster hit, they would much rather cut it early. And if you're developing something that they don't think is going to be a AAA level, they might just cut funding entirely before it gets too far into it. Do you think there's still? I think there's still room for AA games out there.
I absolutely think there's still room for it. Whether or not the industry decides to go that route is I guess another discussion. But I think for sure. I love the choices and the options we have. Like a AAA video game experience is its own thing, and an indie game experience is also its own thing.
Yes.
But so is a AA. There's been some really good, like Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 is a AA game.
Yes.
One of the most beautiful video games I've ever played. One of the most awesome stories. The best sound design I've ever heard. So yeah, I think there's a lot of really incredible AA games that have been made, and I certainly think there's a market for it. So it'll be interesting if this is something that kind of snowballs and everyone kind of follows suit. But no, Una, I'm with you. I think there's plenty of room for AA games in the industry.
As do I. And I think it's just a lot of it becomes marketing as well, right? Sony's going to invest in their biggest properties. You know, the marketing dollars will be on Last of Us 3 or whatever, or you know, the next Naughty Dog game. But it may not. If Knack 3 came out tomorrow, there's no money that's going to be invested in advertising Knack 3. And I think that's part of the issue is that if they don't even have if they don't see the sight of it making money, they will not invest money. And people don't seem to understand, but if you don't invest in marketing, no one becomes aware of your game. It is very hard to do a grassroots thing that works in the video game world because there's so much being pumped out at all times. And to have a original property is very difficult. That's why they invest in Call of Duty every year or a thing that you know will constantly make money over other properties. And that's because it's so much easier to market something that you know is a brand than to market something new or something that is lesser than a full AAA game. So I'm hoping we'll see more. I just don't know if Sony will be the people to provide it. There's definitely a market there for Xbox, though, I feel, who have invested on the lower tier stuff, a lot of independent studios and a lot of AA games. That this could be where Xbox really finds its niche.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's it. That's actually all the news we're going to discuss this week. That's not all of the news. There's a ton of other stuff, including talking. Will GTA shut down GTA Online? My understanding is no. And there's a ton of other stuff. If you think we missed a very important question or a very important topic to talk about, youtube.com/AEW Games. Let us know in the comments down below. And if it is very important, we will tackle it next week. Okay, we're an hour into this, but it's not over. It's time for our favorite segment, the community mailbag, and it'll happen right after this. And we're back. It's finally time for the community mailbag, our favorite segment of the show, and it's brought to you by our friends Upper Deck. Collect your favorite Upper Deck wrestlers or AEW wrestlers in 2024's Upper Deck AEW or 2025's Allure Pack, which we will be opening today. Start your trading card collection today. Unwrap autographs, memorabilia, or premium text inserts. We have an Allure Pack right here. We've been big fans of these cards.
Oh, big fans. Speaking of premium, these cards are premium. Look at this.
Ooh, look at Colton Gunn, flashy as always. Jack Perry.
Jack Perry.
I love the look of these cards. Here's a Chris Statlander card.
I do too. They look so good.
Chris Jericho.
Nice.
Kyle, look at the flash on that one.
Long-haired Kyle O'Reilly too.
Claudio doing a double stomp. Nice.
Oh, very nice.
Nyla Rose, our good friend. Daniel Garcia, our TNT champion. And right back to Colton Gunn.
Look how cool all these cards look. These cards. This is my favorite pack.
You would open a trading card pack and you got one of these usually. You would go crazy for it.
Yes.
Now it's every single part of the pack. AEW Allures Pack is out now. You can check it out. Go to upperdeck.com if you would like to open AEW packs or all kinds of other card packs. It's all there, upperdeck.com. Thank you to Upper Deck. We've got 3 questions today, Chugs, as always.
Yes.
Beautiful questions sent out to tbs.com/arcade mailbag. Send out your questions there. Our first one is from Mr. Smith.
Yes, Mr. Smith 0693. Thank you very much for the question. We're kicking things off with this one. Mr. Smith says, did you ever receive a game as a gift that you never heard of that turned out to be one of your all-time favorites?
Yes.
For me, it was SNES's Secret of Evermore, a fantastic RPG from Squaresoft. My mom bought it as a Christmas gift because the monster on the cover kind of looked like one of my action figures. Mr. Smith, thank you very much for the question. My brain immediately goes to this story. So when me and my brother were younger, we would go over to my cousin's house, and on the PlayStation 1, we would play Resident Evil 2. We loved Resident Evil 2, absolutely loved it. And we begged my mom that year to get us RE2 for Christmas. But she saw the rating on the game and said, oh, no, I can't get a mature game for my boys. They're too young. But then instead, she asked around and said, oh, what can I get? So she ended up coming home with Final Fantasy VII. And when me and my brother got Final Fantasy VII and we saw that it wasn't Resident Evil 2, we cried. We both cried. We were so bummed we didn't get RE2. And we're like, what is this game? Then we played it. One of my favorite games of all time that still absolutely burned into my memory. And we put more time into that than any game ever on the PlayStation 1. So that was a gift that I got that I did not want. Same with my brother. And then once we got it, I can't imagine my life without that game. So Final Fantasy VII for me actually is that answer. What about you?
What an instrumental game to come out of nowhere for you.
For real, out of nowhere, dude.
So mine is a very similar thing. It was not my mom, but I would go to my grandparents' place every second weekend with my father. And essentially, my grandparents would go to Florida for most of winter and come back home. And what they would do is in Florida, things were a lot cheaper than in Canada. So they would buy all of these video games and toys for us. They would put it in a basket. And then throughout the year, they would reward us with having the option to pick from the basket. And one thing that they would do is I owned a Nintendo. I never owned a Super NES, and then I owned an N64. But my grandparents didn't know what game came from what console. So they would buy games for all consoles and just put them in this basket. I just didn't want to tell my grandparents they're buying stuff that I couldn't use. And so I would always pick from the basket something I would be able to use. I remember one of the first few ones was Clue Clue Land on NES, which is like a puzzle game that is fairly known. But my biggest pull from that was Banjo-Kazooie, which I knew almost nothing about. I remember seeing an image of it in Nintendo Power, but I had no clue of what it was, and I had no real interest in it. And now is one of my favorite mascot platformers of all time. And so shout out to my grandma, who definitely constantly provided me with video games I had nothing, I had no information about. And it may very well be why I'm so into video games nowadays. A great pull for both of us while very, very young.
Oh, Banjo-Kazooie's top 3 N64 games for me.
Oh, yes. It's up there for sure.
Good. Yeah. But Mr. Smith, thank you very much for the question. Appreciate it.
Yes, greatly appreciate it. Our next question is from Jeffrey. Jeffrey says, let's go back to the days when we would have Blockbuster nights or later down the line Hollywood Video or even a local video store. What were some of your favorite video game rentals that you would rent over and over as a kid? Love this podcast. I listen weekly. Thank you. Well, thank you, Jeffrey. Chugs, what game were you renting every single week at Blockbuster?
Oh, so there were a couple of them. One was Crash Bandicoot 3 Warped. Me and my brother rented that one a lot. We also rented Metal Gear Solid quite a bit. But the one that really is burned into my memory because it took years until we actually got it, and my brother would rent it, or I would rent it, and we would play it a bunch. Brave Fencer Musashi. I brought it up a couple of times on this podcast, but seriously, I remember originally we wanted to rent that because it came with like a demo of, I believe, Final Fantasy VIII. I could be wrong, but there was some sort of demo that came with it. So we're like, ooh, we love Final Fantasy VII. I want to see what Final Fantasy VIII is all about, which was also very cool. But then we got hooked on Brave Fencer Musashi, where I swear it was like every week we would go back, and there was only one copy. So we were so nervous every time that someone was going to rent the game. But we got very, very lucky. We rented that over and over and over again until eventually we ended up buying it. But yeah, Brave Fencer Musashi, we rented over a dozen times, easily.
I think I talked about this too. I think both of us have talked about this in general, renting at Blockbuster. But I almost exclusively kept re-renting games. I don't honestly remember a lot of games that I rented once. I remember I rented Hybrid Heaven at least 6 times. I remember No Mercy until I got it a year after its release. Would ask my dad to rent it almost every time we went there. And before No Mercy, it was the World Tour and Revenge games that I would get him to just rent at all times. And then on top of that as well, I would get him to get the Mario Party and Diddy Kong Racing was our biggest one. Me and my sister I read this in Nintendo Power, but there was a co-op mode that was only exclusive through a password. And so my sister and I would end up playing the co-op mode and trying to beat the single-player mode, but with two of us. Very hard game if you try nowadays, but Diddy Kong Racing was a huge part of my childhood, and I would regularly get it rented at Blockbuster every time I would go to my father's house, for sure. Jeffrey, great question. Let us know down below at youtube.com/AEW Games what games you guys and girls were getting at Blockbuster religiously. Last question of the day.
Yeah, last but not least, Zach. Thank you very much for the question. Zach says, hey, Chugs and Uno, big fan of the pod and what you fellas do in the ring. Thank you. My question is, do you have a video game you loved so much that you did everything you could to learn more about the lore and history behind it? For example, I've been replaying God of War Ragnarok after recently learning that my family is of Nordic descent, and I've been studying how to read the runic alphabet in my spare time and consuming everything I can about Norse mythology. Zach, great question. I do have an answer immediately. And I know this lore you really, really have to dig deep into, but Dark Souls.
Of course.
I remember the first time I played Dark Souls 3, which is my first Souls game experience. Of course, I loved it. It's hooked me. It's one of my favorite genres of games. Clearly, the rest of the world feels that way because we're getting so many Souls likes, and I love it. But again, the lore is you really, really do have to dig for Dark Souls lore. You find a lot of it in item descriptions, or they do environmental storytelling and things like that. But there's someone on YouTube that I'm sure a bunch of you have heard of, Vatividia, and he makes all these incredible deep dive videos, like hour, 2 hour, 3 hour videos on the lore of just like certain sections of the Dark Souls world or Elden Ring or Bloodborne. And I have watched hours and hours and hours of these videos and reading the item descriptions. And I have books that like explain the lore of all the items in the Dark Souls games. I love that you have to dig for the lore in Dark Souls. It really, really makes you work for it. And I also appreciate that a lot of it too is kind of up for interpretation. Like my experience of a boss or a character or a world or an enemy might be different than someone else's. So, but I find the Dark Souls lore so fascinating. I have spent countless hours listening and researching on those games, and yeah, I absolutely love it. So there is a ton of juicy lore in Dark Souls, a ton.
I mean, that's the juicy lore game, if anything, really.
Yeah.
For me, I remember when I was a kid, the two games that I was so invested in that I needed to get the manual. Like, I needed to know everything about the world, every little location. I needed to see the maps. Was Final Fantasy VII, which I needed to know everything about. I think I might still own the book somewhere. And then the Ocarina of Time on N64 was one of those games that I was like, I need to understand every aspect of this game. As I've grown older, lore is good, but very rarely do I get super fascinated that I'll jump into it. But with the exception with a few games, From Software, I've done it out of pure necessity, because sometimes I just feel like, I wish I understood what the context of this is, and then when you read into it, you're like, oh, I just never caught on to the signs before. Right. So I watched a lot of that. And the other one I did is not even to follow the main story, but lore videos on Red Dead Redemption 2. And the reason for that is that the map is so vast, there are locations within the map that you'll walk by and never think about it, but there's this guy on YouTube called Strange Man who does bite-sized lore videos. And by bite-sized, I don't mean the videos are short because they're about 20 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever, but more so, rather than talk about main characters in Red Dead Redemption, he'll talk about a location and how that location might be like, so you'll find a grave, for example, and you'll be like, okay, cool. But that grave actually is an indication from another location. That location has a story beat, and that story beat goes to another location. And so he essentially amalgamates all the information that you would get contextually, and he makes them into short videos. And I find it incredible, and that's the same reason From Software I find incredible as well, that a game is so rich with story, and it's not beating you on the head with it. It's not even telling you to go seek it out. It's more like, hey, look, we thought about this a whole lot, and if you want to find it, that's cool. But we made sure that every little piece you see has a reason it's there. And I find that so fascinating. It's so fascinating that someone would do this. And I know, like, From Software are big on this, but Rockstar is very big on it as well. They're very big on, like, animations being unique to situations and lore being unique to situations. And I've been a big fan of his videos. I still watch them. That game's been out for years, and he's still making videos. That's how much content are in these games. And I'm very excited to see, what the future of these lore videos is going to be like as well.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds awesome. Zach, thank you very much for the question.
Yeah, incredible questions from everyone around this week. If you want your question read on a future episode, go to tbs.com/arcade mailbag for North American users as well. Do let us know what to talk about in our future episodes. Available every single Monday and available in a video format, youtube.com/AEW Games, Monday at noon. You can find me on Twitch. I've been Twitch streaming so religiously recently.
Yes.
Playing so many games. Twitch.tv/EvilUno. I will be back this week. Plus, our big mystery wrestling event is March 2nd. It's free. Watch at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Twitch.tv/EvilUno. Chugs?
And I will be streaming a ton this week. Once again, if this is your first listen, twitch.tv/the Chugs. I'll be going through The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, Ender Magnolia, and of course, Silent Hill 2 Remake. So a little bit of something for everybody if you're interested. Once again, twitch.tv/the Chugs. I'll be streaming all week.
You should definitely watch it because he is on the cusp of finishing his 4th game of the year. You're very close with 2 of those. So in the next few weeks, you're probably going to see Silent Hill finished. You should definitely check it out. And you can follow twitch.tv/AW Games every Monday night. MXM does a live Twitch stream as well as youtube.com/AW Games. You can find their content Thursdays for the Bronami code. That is it for this week. We talked a whole lot about video games. We sure did, and I loved every second of it. Every second of it. Me too. I love these fully packed weeks. It gives me a ton to reminisce on. We will see you next Monday for another episode of All In Arcade. I hope we will see you there. We appreciate all of your support. Have a good day, and bye-bye.